Jimmy!
Liz! Hey!
It's 3 in the morning.
I'm sorry.
What's in that bowl?
Pretzels.
The other bowl.
Maybe some painkillers.
Maybe?
There's painkillers in there, yeah.
I have to ask, is this you forever?
I don't know.
So I want to start with a congratulations, because I think shrinking is one of my favorite things. It's definitely my favorite thing I've seen in 2023, but I also genuinely love it. Yes. I was saying beforehand, before we started, that I've seen the first 9 episodes. And when it stopped at the end of the 9th episode, I was like, oh no, because I was having such a great time. I wanted to see the finale. I think it's one of those shows where you genuinely want to spend time with the characters, which is rare and special. So congratulations.
Thank you. I love hearing that. Obviously, like, you never know when you put something out, and we made this, it felt so good when I read it and when we were shooting it, and you just never know. You just have to like sort of hope and trust that like people will see the same thing and feel the same things that you did. And I love that you've seen 9. That's wow. I haven't seen the last one either. I've seen as much as you have. And I watched it with my partner, and he was like, at one point he was like, I know it's good because I'm not trying to think of things to talk about.
That's great.
Like, I'm just enjoying it, and I want to know what happens, and I'm invested in these people, and I'm not trying to think what compliment can I give Michael about his scenes in that episode or anything. That was cool. It's exciting. I'm so proud of it, and I just think that Bill Lawrence and Jason Segel and Brett Goldstein are so very talented, and I feel so grateful. This is like I never knew I didn't know any of these people. It's so rare that you get a job where you know nobody. Right. You usually have some connection or something that brings you into the job, but I'd never met any of them before I started. I had auditioned, but I didn't meet anybody. I made a tape at home and sent it in and got the job, and I didn't have to ever do that thing where you meet and talk and get to know each other before you get a job. And I was like, what if I show up and they hate me? And I don't think they did. I think it worked out.
No. I mean, one of the great things about it is actually the chemistry I think that you as co-stars all have. It's such a great ensemble. And I wanted to know how it was to work with, Jason Segel, Jessica Williams, Harrison Ford. What was that experience like?
Well, it is one of those shows where there are no two people who are the same, which is, I think, always makes for more fun connections and more fun chemistry opportunities, because there's nobody playing the same thing at the same time ever. Mm-hmm. So like right away, we all kind of were in our own lanes, representing our own things and having our own points of view about what was going on in the show. So it makes it a lot, I think, more fun, because you just sort of can trust what you're doing is right for you, and doesn't have to and then you can just listen and respond to the other people. But Jason, especially, because he was, this sort of central guy in the show, he's just so lovable, and so he has such an effortless charm to him and kindness. He really knows how to be a great leader and cuddly, lovely, sweet, approachable colleague and boss. And Bill and Brett was he was shooting Ted Lasso, I think, most of the time we were shooting, so we would only hear from him, and then we got occasional glimpses of him, but he's very involved and in the writing of it, and I'm sure he's been real heavily involved in the cut. And then Bill and all the people that Bill, the writers and the directors and stuff that were all in Bill Lawrence people, they're just fantastic. They're really on the same page, and they really understand what we're making, even when we're sort of like a cog. I felt like a cog in the wheel of this show, showing up when I was needed, and I would always think, gosh, I wish I was there more, just because it seems like they're making something so incredible. So yeah, I mean, all of those elements, I think all of those elements in that hierarchy led to this chemistry that you see on screen, and that they had such clear characters and such varied characters meant that any combo is going to produce something interesting.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true because it is a good mixing and matching and seeing how these interconnected relationships and dynamics are is part of the fun.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where you're all having drinks together in the backyard, and I was just like, I want an invite. That looks so fun.
They look like they're friends. I know, I know.
Yes,
And it's just,
yes.
and but before we'd started seeing scripts, I thought, well, how is my character going to interact with, these other characters? I'm really just Jimmy's friend. And then it turns out, oh no, you're also Harrison's lawyer and you're Gabby's old friend. And
Hmm.
because you know Jimmy, you know the neighbors. And so like, and they're so smart about not explaining it. You just sort of
Hmm.
see it. Suddenly
Hmm.
it's
It
suddenly
feels
I'm
organic. Yeah,
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 definitely,
yeah.
definitely. And I love Brian. Brian is such a great character.
Um,
And you share some background with him in that you're a queer person from Texas. And I wondered, is that something that was on the page initially, or did that actually pull that from your bio?
They wrote that after I got the part, and also my character's last name is Lorenzo, which is my middle name.
Oh,
I don't know if
amazing.
I don't know if they ever say that, but it's like on paperwork and stuff.
Hmm.
And so they did that. They do that. They're I think the Bill Lawrence camp, like they really are good at like writing to you and writing to what is most organic for you. And so the things that happened to Brian aren't my life, but like that he's from Texas, and they were like, well, is this how you would say this, or is this how you would? They were really great about tailoring it to us, and we did some improv, and it almost never happens. But if there's ever something where I'm like, I wonder if I should say it like this, or if this reference should be more like this, they're always so quick to um make sure it's comfortable coming out of your mouth. um
Right.
Writing is so good, and they're so in tune with us as performers and as actors, the way that we talk, that you could feel, even though these roles weren't written for us, you could feel once we were cast, once it was Jessica Williams, once it was Harrison Ford, suddenly like the writing was really clearly
Hmm.
tailored to them and me and Luke Tenney and Lukita and all of us, um, Krista, and yeah, it was wonderful to watch, to see the scripts come out and see how we are all just getting more in tune with each other, and how the
Hmm.
writing.
Yeah, I
But
mean
every
the
time I
writing
see it,
is.
oh,
Oh,
the
sorry, go
writing
ahead.
is so good, right?
It's so funny, but it's also so poignant, like and
Yeah.
thematically dense. But one of the main through lines is sort of this like trauma around parental relationships, like from
Mhm.
every perspective, which I think is really interesting, right? Because I
Mhm.
think there's these ideas in therapy of like your mother, what did your mother, like very Freudian,
Mhm.
whereas this shows like very different perspectives. And we even are starting to see a little bit of that with Brian, which I think is something that there's a large part of the audience that is going to relate to that. Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit to that dynamic for your character Brian?
Well, it's yeah, because there's my character Brian is from Texas and has a good relationship with his parents, but there is some kind of disconnect, and it's a little different than anything I've seen before, because we've obviously seen the queer parents not accepting their child, and we've
Mm-hmm.
seen the queer parents over accepting their child
Yeah.
and being perfect. Like, and I've been in all those shows. I've worked on projects where the parent just doesn't accept, where the parent accepts too much and it's overbearing, and then when it's just perfect and nothing is spoken,
Mm-hmm.
this sort of like blissful, idyllic version
Mm-hmm.
of it. And this is somewhere, you've met my dad, right? You met my dad in
Yes, he
episode
shows up.
9.
Yeah, yeah, he
He
shows up
shows up and
in
he's this sort
yeah.
of like Texas cowboy kind of a guy. And
Yeah.
he's sweet and he loves me, but there's a little bit of a
Mm-hmm.
disconnect. And it's subtle and yet deep. It goes all the way to my core.
Yeah.
Um, to Brian's core, even though his father loves him and is there, and no question will be
Mm-hmm.
at the wedding, but there's a little bit of something going on, and you learn about it earlier in the series, when I open up to Gabby, when this everything goes my way mantra
My
finally.
next question. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. When it finally cracks, you sort of see just glimpses of like, oh, I wonder, what is it about this guy's family and history, and what is it about his queerness
Mm-hmm.
that defines him? Because obviously nobody is as sunny as he presents,
Mhm.
and and so I appreciated it, and they were really great. They were like, the story's coming along. We want to talk to you about it. We want you to, we want you to make sure it feels authentic to you and rings true for you. And um, I'm really proud of where we came to with that. It's subtle
Yeah.
and simple, but it goes really it goes to the core of the guy as opposed to it being traumatic. Like we've
Yeah.
seen the
Yes.
traumatic version, and I'm happy that we're doing something that's a little bit more low key, a little bit subtler.
Yeah. I mean, I think in life, it's not all queer joy or all queer trauma or all queer
Yes,
tragedy, right? And I think that
right.
that sort of carries throughout. Like, yes, he has the baggage of that we're seeing unfold, but there's this other part of his life that is so wonderful and fulfilling. Like his relationship with Charlie is so beautiful. It's such
Mhm.
a great couple. And I found myself as I was watching it enjoying the story, but also kind of reflecting on, even though we have a long way to go to true equity, 100%,
Yep.
how much has changed. Like I'm a child of the 90s. I remember that shit. Like we have come a long way, even since 2006 with Ugly Betty. And I'm wondering for you, someone who is, a queer person, but also, being the person to create that kind of representation on screen, like how you feel about the way things have changed.
Well, it's wild to have had a bit of a front row seat, to have been, and I think about like when my character in Ugly Betty came out to his mother, it was bad, and she turned her back on him and never came back in 4 seasons, and that was true to its time,
Hmm.
and it meant a lot to a lot of people. I think for that show, because a lot of people came to that show with an open mind and an open heart,
Hmm.
and to see that. um I heard from so many families who saw that episode and it helped, or it helped their families kind of see, oh gosh, we don't want to be that. We don't want to become
Hmm.
that extreme. So let's navigate a little bit more towards acceptance and in our own family, kids saying that it gave them the courage to come out, or parents saying that it gave them the courage to tell their kids, if you were to come out, I wouldn't be that way. I would be okay with it, no matter what. And I feel like that, even from that episode in season one to season four, when Justin, played by Mark Indelicato, the kid who was 11 when we started the show and 15, 16 when we ended the show, and he starts to come out, or his family sees that he's going to come out. We've known, the audience has known, we've all known.
Yeah.
We see it, and then the family throws him a party, like a coming out party, before he's ready.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my character Mark has to say, "No, you can't do that. This is too much. This is, you've gone in the other direction. You can't force him
Yeah.
into it." So like, to even those 3 years
Yeah.
between those two episodes, to watch where we'd come, and here we have the opposite extremes of familial acceptance, was amazing. And then I got to do this Christmas movie, Single All the Way, which
Yes.
completely devoid of it in either direction. There's no homophobia at all, and there's no sort of putting a spotlight on it either.
Hmm.
It's just able to be a romantic Christmas movie
Hmm.
about, falling in love, about loneliness, which is not, it's not, just a queer problem.
Hmm.
That's a
It's a
human
deeply
problem.
human experience.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
like to imagine a storyline like Brian's and his dad's, that is so subtle, that is like that is deep, but specific, and
Hmm.
like a sort of a delicate approach to how a queer boy grows up in a straight world.
Hmm.
Um, to I don't think we could have told that a story quite that specific and subtle 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It would need to
Yeah.
go to the extreme. It would need to be either all in, all accepting, or is that
Right.
a cat?
Yes. Sorry. I have a cat who's trying to make a cameo. He's
Oh, it's
defeating my
so
background.
I thought I saw a face, and I was like, is that on a pillow? And then a tail?
It's
Fantastic.
a
I love
ghost
it.
cat. He
And
wants to cause chaos. Sorry.
he's orange.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
it goes really good with the pink.
Well, you got to coordinate. I coordinate my cats. That's how important fashion is to
I
me.
love orange and pink. Love it. Anyway, like I think I think we're able to, and I also think this show is so good at not playing to the extremes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yes, obviously Jimmy's methods of therapy are extreme, but we're able to sort of, like it just feels so human, and it feels
Right.
so real. It doesn't feel like we have to make a giant example out of things. It can be,
Right.
it can sort of bubble.
Just be in
Um,
the fabric of life, the way it actually is. Imagine
right,
that.
yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's definitely like the realest thing I've ever done. Like
Mm-hmm.
the most human real thing I've ever been a part of. There's like funny characters, eccentric characters in this world, but it's real.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Yeah,
it's
it's
been
like
very
rooted in some real pathos and like, yeah, I agree. I mean, I guess maybe that's what it is. It's funny, it's heightened, but at the same time, it's a deeply, deeply relatable. I just loved it. I know I've said that a bunch of
mm,
times, but I adored it. Now TV does not have to be prescriptive. Obviously, not everything has to be a message, but is there something, if someone was watching this, that you wouldn't mind them taking away from the experience, aside from it just being deeply entertaining?
yeah, well, the thing that I always find is the way that brings it up, into that puts my heart in my throat for this show is the grief, is the is
Mm,
it's
mm-hmm.
all the different ways that the characters deal with their grief, because there's something about it being about three shrinks, essentially. It's essentially about three shrinks, and how they use their um words and their knowledge to help themselves and each other and then all the people around them. And they're all grieving something. They're all grieving Tia, who was a part of all of their lives and died. And if they're not grieving Tia directly or specifically, they're grieving the people close to Tia, Tia's daughter, Tia's husband. And so, I think that, and that the grief keeps. This is what I love about this show is every episode the grief manifests in different ways and with
Yeah,
different people, and that is so real. And I think everyone can relate to it. And grief isn't just about losing people. It's about, for Harrison, it's about losing his abilities. Um, for my character, there's grief in the change from boyfriend to partner to husband. The stages of like losing a part of oneself, but by gaining another. Gabby's going through a divorce. So we're all grieving something.
yeah,
And we're all dealing with it in our different ways. And the way that this show made me go into therapy. Working on the show, I'd never really been in
really.
therapy before. And as I was like reading the scripts to the show and being in these scenes and seeing where it was going and how they were dealing with it professionally as mental health professionals, but then also in their real life, I started to think about my own life and my own, journey as a healthy, a mentally healthy individual. And I'd never really been in therapy. I never really had. And there
Yeah.
were, there's just things that you don't talk about, even to the closest people, to your closest friends and loved ones.
Right.
And I got into therapy, and it's been really cool. It's been really helpful, and I'm still learning what it means for me and what it can do for me. And but I think that's the thing that I think people will take away, the mental health, the grief, the battling grief, and living with grief.
Yeah.
The show is that's what that show is kind of about for me.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And it's amazing that it's so like charming and uplifting at the same time and like,
Yeah.
but unafraid to like really kind of touch on some dark things and break your heart a little bit, you know? But
Yeah.
I think both of those working together raise the stakes of the other in a way that's really compelling. Um,
I like that
so
people lash out in the show too. I like that people behave badly.
I know it's a little wish fulfillment to be honest.
Yeah,
I
totally.
kind of wish I could say the things that some of these people say, but I never would have the balls. So yeah,
Mhm.
very, very good. But this obviously is coming soon. It's a big deal, but you're very busy, very booked, very blessed. You also have Jane Anger coming to the stage soon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we just finished. We're hopefully we don't know where the next stop is, but we definitely
Okay.
hope to do it again. We just finished doing it in Washington D.C.
Mm-hmm.
At the Shakespeare Theater, and we did it off Broadway last winter. And it's an incredible new play by Talene Monahan about William. I played William Shakespeare in quarantine during the Black Plague, trying to write King Lear, and it's a comedy, but it's also a sort of feminist revenge comedy because Jane Anger is this actual character from history who we don't really know much about, who wrote feminist letters and had them published under this name Jane Anger, which was not obviously a real name, but nobody knows who she was or who they were, and Talene imagines that she knew Shakespeare. And so Shakespeare needs her to help him write King Lear, and she needs him to help get her letters published. And it's a version of William Shakespeare. I mean, it rewrites history, obviously, because we don't know that they knew each other at all. But it's a version of Shakespeare that is a sort of toxic, petulant man baby. Very funny, and it's got, it sometimes feels almost vaudevillian, but then it is also heightened, and there's incredible language that's actually from Shakespeare, that's actually from this Jane Anger. But Talene is just this wonderful, hilarious writer, and she wrote it for my partner and me at the very height of the pandemic as something that we could do in our apartment on Zoom, which we did as a two-person, like 20-minute play. And it was just me as Will and him as my idiot apprentice, Frankie. And then well, people really liked it. So she thought, well, what if somebody came through the window while they're in quarantine and needed something from Shakespeare, and Shakespeare needed something from her, and came up with this whole amazing Jane Anger thing. And then Anne Hathaway shows up. Anne Hathaway, Shakespeare's wife, not Anne Hathaway, the Oscar winner, and that's very funny. And it was wonderful, and we had a great run in New York, and then a really great run in DC, and we hope to do it again somewhere else. It's exciting. It's a really exciting new piece of theater that I'm super proud of.
Well, I'm making a personal request that you bring it to San Francisco.
Ooh, okay. I love doing theater in San Francisco. I did buyer and seller there at the Curran Theater a bunch of years ago. And,
Amazing.
oh, I love it there. So you live in San Francisco?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area. Yeah. So that's not all though. You were, like I said, very busy. There is also, you're directing Silver Foxes. Silver Foxes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So Silver Foxes is a new play about old guys who live together in Palm Springs. And we're doing it at the Uptown Players in Dallas, Texas, which is where I'm from. I'm from Plano, which is outside Dallas. And it's this really amazing queer theater company that's been around for about 20 years. And we've got a totally local cast of amazing Dallas actors. And we run at the Theater 3, that's the venue, for a few weeks. And the hope is, like, this is the kind of the way theater is. Goodness, I almost knocked over my microphone. The theater is this incredible, like, I'm getting a little heady here, but like, like, you're never quite done with theater. Like when you make a movie or you make a TV show, you put it up, you shoot it, you cut it, and then at a certain point, I've been on that side of things. I've been on the editing side of making something, directing something for the screen. There is a point where you're like, okay, I'm done. I don't have any more thoughts. This is it. This is what I intended. Whether it's perfect or not, this is what I intended, and we're going to put this out there. In the theater, it's always changing. And what we just sort of learned with Jane Anger, doing it in New York and then doing it in Washington and then Imagine doing it in other cities, is like every audience is different, and every group of audiences, every city is going to be different. And so this will be the world premiere of Silver Foxes. Although we've worked on it in New York, we've worked on it in LA. Now we're going to be doing it in Dallas, and what we do for Dallas might be totally different than what we do for another city, but it's going to be so exciting to build it and create it with these actors in this town. And so I'm really excited to go and like immerse myself in this play in this new city for a little while.
Yeah.
And then
How does
do it again.
the experience of directing sort of like feed your soul versus acting? Like, how is that different for you?
Well, I've directed a little bit for the screen, and I really like the editing process. I really like, and as an actor, especially on the stage, I really like the editing process that is organic to being on stage in front of an audience. As you do a play for an audience, you're constantly editing for them, especially in comedy, which is like I do a lot of. Like you're constantly hearing what they're responding to and editing your performance for them. And I think directing is sort of like that too. I think everything that the audience takes in is curated by the people who are making it, and I love being part of that editing process. And I think that's where I am able to wrap my head around directing, because for a long time I was like, I can't direct, I don't know how to direct. I need a director. How could I be a director? I need a director. And then the more I was sort of thrust into it, or I would like be inspired by something and think I could direct that, the more I've started to realize like it's those skills that you sort of glom onto. Because I used to like just try to get everyone to act like me. That's how I would direct, and that wasn't helpful. But when you start to think about like the air and the time and the impact that the material is having on the audience, it becomes like a piece of editing. And yeah, so I don't know. The truth is, I hope I'm good at this. I haven't quite done anything like this before with Silver Foxes, but I think it'll be good. I'm really excited. The material is great, the cast is great, and this theater company is great and has a very loyal audience. So
That's really exciting. I think
thank you.
that's very, very cool. So I know you've been very generous with your time. I have one last kind of fun question for you before we wrap up. And in my prep for this, I went back and I reread an interview that you did, I think in 2014 with Our Sister Site Out, where you and your partner were talking about how you met, fell in love, all of this cute stuff. And there was one little detail in there about your house being decorated, your apartment at the time being decorated with all the things you had taken from previous projects like Ugly Betty, Partners, Angels in America. So what I wanted to know is, did you take anything from Shrinking? And if so, what?
Oh, good question. What did I take from Shrinking? Until I took, like on a set. It's been. I just like director's chairs on a set, they have like an actor's name. You're like, don't sit in that. That's Harrison Ford's chair or whatever.
Right.
I took mine.
Yay!
I'm not sure that I was supposed to, but it said season 1. It said my name. Like, it's not gonna be. But I didn't ask. I just took it. So I did take that, and I took a bunch of pictures. I didn't take a piece of furniture. That's but I still use Vanessa Williams' desk as our dining table. Vanessa Williams' desk from Ugly Betty, it's still our dining table. I have the giant cast iron valve from Angels in America. That's absolutely still there. And I have, well, this is this is a bit of a spoiler, but in Jane Anger, I get my arms cut off. And this is the hand.
Amazing.
And then on Ugly Betty, there was this set piece we called the Tube. It was a giant circular hallway that like we were always walking in, and it was like a tunnel, and it had shelves on either side, and in every episode the shelves had something different on them, like old-timey cameras or shoes or whatever. And in one episode they had these these little sort of round figurines, these sort of like cartoon, like art deco-y figurines of different sizes that were neutral, and they were really cool. And then they kept those, and on the last episode they painted them to look like us.
Oh.
And so there's mine.
Amazing. That's
so
so
like
cool.
I took that. It's on a shelf in the closet because that's the only place Ryan will let me keep it. I got to take mine. That was a pretty good one.
That's awesome.
But yeah, we did move, and we're in a much more minimalist apartment now. So it's not quite as jam-packed with like our memorabilia. But my plan is to someday have a table somewhere surrounded by directors' chairs with all the different
I love that.
facts. I've taken them for. I've got a lot. I've got a lot of them.
I feel like it's break room rules, right? Like if the yogurt has your name on it, you get to eat it. If the chair has your name on it, you get to take it.
Yeah, well, yeah. They're not gonna. I mean, there's not gonna be another Michael Urie season 1 of Shrinking, so
Yeah,
that's
you
mine.
gotta do it. You gotta do it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and being so generous with your time. This has been so much fun. I'm so excited for people to see Shrinking. I'll say it one more time. It's excellent. I loved it. Cannot wait to see the season finale.
Oh my God. I love that you watched all 9. Nobody's watched all 9 that I've talked
Oh,
to.
are you
That's really cool. It means a lot.
greedy. I had to watch it all.
I won't do the interview until I've seen all 9. I love it.